If you like facts and figures, if you like analytical data, it is my pleasure on behalf of Cryptovania to introduce you to Mr. George Workman.
Good to be here, my friend.
Nice to see you.
Yes, sir.
Do you know an adventurous soul, unafraid of pushing the limits of popular science?
Do you know a pioneer searching the backwoods and the creek sides for evidence of mysteries and legends?
Do you know a voyager scouring the internet for evidence of encounters with aliens or monsters?
We do.
Cross the threshold into our world.
These are our people.
This is Cryptovania. George, we got to go camping last night in my favorite place in the entire world to go Bigfoot at, Miller Farm at the Wolf Kill Shelters, and we got absolutely skunked. What do you think about that?
Oh, I thought we had a great time. You know, I kind of just chose that place randomly and confirmed it with you, and you said it was pretty cool. So, I mean, it was a nice area. I mean, we didn't get totally rained out. We heard some strange things. You know, that's why we're there, to hear different things. And even if it isn't something strange, it's still can be, you know, a learning experience.
Yeah.
You know, the one sound that we heard kind of sounded like
The screech, yeah.
Yeah, like I didn't know what that was, and you told me, and it's good to know.
I told you what I thought it might have been
Right.
too. There was no conclusiveness to that. When you go out with other people or alone, for that matter, what kind of a success ratio do you feel like you usually have? I mean, do you have something significant happen half the time, 25% of the time?
Yeah, I'd say closer to 0 to 25% is the closest.
Honesty's the best policy.
Right. I mean, and I think as you do this more often, you kind of get better at choosing where you go and who you go with and what time you go. So I think as I've gone on through the years since I've started, I have gotten a little better at, getting audio or finding structures and stuff like that. So,
do you feel that it's better to take a large group versus a small group? Do you think that it's better to have females there or not have females, or any kind of things like that factor into your research?
I kind of prefer the smaller groups, I think when you go with large groups, some people will go out and there might be 30, 40, 50 people, going on a march into the woods. I kind of not really shooting for that kind of stuff. Preferably I'd, kind of like to stay near one or two other people and we kind of lay low and, might have some conversations, but maybe, at a lower tone, lower volume. That's kind of my preference.
What do you consider to be prime time when you're doing your research? Do you think it's, is there a certain hour or weather condition, or what do you look for to really anticipate success?
Yeah, I think as far as time goes, I think between dusk and dawn, all the way, because it seems to be two prime areas. Like I've gotten calls right at 7:38, 8 p.m. and then I've got nothing until 3:30, even though they're the same kind of sound. So there seems to be different windows, and like I was telling you yesterday, if I can, I'll try to stay up until dawn. I've only done it a few times. It's kind of difficult unless you're pounding caffeine.
Right.
But I at least try to, do that.
Well, we almost made it last night. We made it until about 3:30.
Yeah.
I thought you were having fun with me saying from dusk until dawn was the prime time. I'd have to agree with you on that, too.
I tried to segment it out, too.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is you got to be in the woods to have something happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I know you do a lot of work with audio recordings back in your home territory and stuff like that. Do you find mostly whoops or Ohio howls or screeching or what seems to be the most common thing that you find on your audios?
The most common thing that I find are the calls, I'd say. I keep getting strange calls, some that kind of sound like that Ohio call.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I haven't heard the long siren call. but I have heard calls that sound like it wasn't made by an animal. It sounds more like it was made by, a human type mouth. You can kind of hear the phonetics of the enunciation of it.
Yeah.
That makes it sound that it's not an animal. You kind of get that feel for it.
Like bad mimicry kind of thing?
Yeah, I get a lot of that. Like maybe some owls. That's pretty common. That's what I hear the most. Owls, or maybe the fake owls.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back and listen to the audio that I get and try to compare it to other known sources of owls and see if it matches. What do I have here?
That was one of my favorite parts about when we were camping last night was when we were talking and we heard the cows and we were both like, okay, there's a cow. Is that a cow? Or is that something trying to sound like a cow?
There's a cow of the woods.
The map that you're involved with, this is something I really want to get into. This really impresses me big time. It's a Pennsylvania map, and could you just explain to everyone what your map's all about?
Oh, sure. So, a few years ago, I joined a group called the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, and the group had been, off and on since the early 80s, maybe late 70s. And different people had taken ownership of it, but they still cataloged their reports. So, data is kind of my thing in an analytical role, as a professional. So when we met up with the group and they were looking for suggestions and volunteers to do certain things, I volunteered, hey, I'd like to make a map. And I'd like to make a database of all these reports, because to me that's invaluable. Every time I get a new report that comes in, you probably maybe think the same way. Okay, well, where are the other ones that we can go see if there are any nearby? So that was my just foundation as an idea to make it. So they had hundreds of reports, as a baseline to start with. So that's what I did. I just kind of plugged through each one, and certain people don't want to. That we have privacy kind of stuff in place.
Sure.
So if they say we don't want it, then I didn't use any of
Right.
this. Or if it was, just right at somebody's house, I wouldn't like stick it in their front
Right.
yard.
Yeah.
I'd move it down the road or into the
Sure.
woods, or so I kind of used that, and just plowed through the reports. I made a database and a map. So at the time, it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago that I really dug in. It took more than 100 hours to map.
I bet.
A couple.
Yeah, it looks it.
And I wouldn't just read the report and find it. Like I would go online and I would find the person on social media and I would see what they wrote about this or that. Just to get a background of the person to get more of the story.
Yeah, makes sense.
And you really dive into the whole thing. And then some people have more than one report on there.
Right.
It's not just one and done sometimes. So you start to see the patterns and different things. And I think it's a really valuable tool that Bigfooters can use as a tool to help them figure out where they might want to go, or as they're traveling around the state of Pennsylvania, they could see, oh, well, this town has this one, here's where these ones are, and things like that.
Before I met you, Nick and I had even used your resource and found a really nice area. And sure enough, we found it by your map, and it turned out it was just over the hill from where we are. So something else. How many entries approximately how many entries do you have on your map?
As of recently, I think I have over 410 entries for Pennsylvania now. And that seems like a lot, but as you know, that's really just probably 10% of what. I mean, most of them don't. Most of the researchers,
2%.
researchers don't say,
Right,
where their spots are. And these are mostly the people, just normal folks who are driving in their car, camping one night. That's mostly what the reports are, if you look on there. So, yeah, 410. And an interesting portion of that is I recently got, I've had Tim Renner's book, Bigfoot in Pennsylvania. I've had it for a while, and I read it. And I kind of didn't get it at first, because he mixed in a lot of stuff about wild man, and some of them seemed like homeless people. But then I picked it up again recently and heard him talk about it. So now I get, the old newspaper reports. They didn't have whatever word that we have for it today, so they use different terms, and that's what he put them in there, whether they were likely that or not. So, but his book covers, the early 20th century,
Right.
1900 to 1910, 1900 or 1910 to 1920. So I started diving into those reports, and they're kind of color coded by decade or just different areas, like 1960s to 2000 is one color. So then for these older ones, I made them a different color, like the early 1900s reports. Excuse me. And what I found is some of these reports from 100 years ago are in the exact same spot as ones from 10 years ago.
Wow.
Is to me that says a lot there, about, or of course there's possibilities what it might mean, but at the very least it means they're in the same area that they were 100 years ago.
And it makes sense. Why wouldn't they be if it was a good area then? Unless there's development encroaching on them, it's a good area now.
Yeah. So to me, that's really exciting, and you start to see like the David Pauly's 411 stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He identified them in clusters and focused in on certain areas, and you can do the same thing with the map. It comes out, you can see, okay, take Erie, 79 runs north, and it hits 90 going across. And there's like a whole T of reports right off of that intersection there. And they're from different years, from different people that, they're not related to each other. And you can see the pattern form right on the map. I mean, a lot of these places are difficult places to go, because they might be down off the highway into a gully, but something's going on there.
Yeah, there's a reason they call it Erie County and Erie, PA, too. I mean, that place is a giant swamp. I've spent a lot of time there. I can see why Squatch would like that area. George, with all these analytics that you've examined and poured over, do you think that the sightings are increasing? Is there more activity? Is it just more people are open to report it? What in the heck is going on? What's your take on it?
I do get the sense that we're getting more reports. As the digital age grows, the power of the internet reaches more people, and you might feel maybe if it was the same amount of reports over a certain time, but maybe people are more comfortable to report them because there's shows like this where people feel comfortable and they can give it to a trusted source, whether it goes public or not. So I think that plays a factor in, how many reports that we actually see coming out these days. So, I mean, I would just be guessing if I thought they were increasing, because of a population increase or whatever the reason might be. Maybe they're more brave to.
What is your guess, though? Off the record.
Off the record. I kind of think that it's whatever it was now is probably what it was 100 years ago. I think
more people are coming forward.
Yeah, that's what I think.
That's cool. Yeah, there's no way to prove it right or wrong. That's a good idea.
Right.
One last thing on your statistics. Colors. Do you find one color that seems to be the most common one in Pennsylvania? Is there much of an instance of ones like the Carbondale, the white one, mostly black, mostly brown, auburn?
That's a good question, and it's one that leads into another project or another step of the process of the developing this project is developing the statistics like you're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
What was the color? How tall was it? Was it young or old? What was the person doing? Like what kind of activity were they doing? Were they hunting? Were they doing playing tennis, or were they driving? So that's another thing I would like to catalog and make statistics for each of those categories. And off the top of my head, to pick a more common color, I would say black.
Right.
And that's one I'd say is most common.
One of my pet things is the white one. Do you ever hear much about the white one?
No, just few and far between. I've seen a few videos, and some in Ohio. I think I've heard people say that they've seen white ones. and it's interesting too. You kind of get locked into your own theories about why it's white or whatever.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I kind of thought, well, it's probably just, I'll say for Pennsylvania area, not like the far north or anything, or like Russia, Siberia, but for a while I thought maybe they're albino type,
Right.
But then I heard something, from a show or some other person's point of view, and I thought maybe they're just really old, because as human beings, as we get old, our hair turns totally white, and it just might be the old guys.
Why not? It's as sensible as anything.
I think it could be,
right.
And maybe, you don't see them that often because they don't get that old that often.
That's a good point too.
So I don't know.
Well, as long as we're getting into stuff like this, the Dogman, do you collect data on the Dogman, or?
I'm more of a just observer and researcher. I don't collect data on that because there's other people that have really good maps and reports. There's one map specifically for Pennsylvania that I think runs out of Lon Strickler's Phantoms and Monsters page.
I've seen it.
He's got quite a few on there. So when I go to look for Dogman, I'll either look on that map or there's another map called the Cloaked Hedgehog.
Mm-hmm.
It's a worldwide Dogman, and I think she has 700 or 800 reports. I just remember it, because there's 400 and some on mine, and they have quite a few more. So I would use those two resources to look.
Do you find that the active Dogman areas are active Sasquatch areas, or are they mutually exclusive?
Yeah, I think they seem to overlap. Just locally for us, I think the western border of Ohio, or western border of Pennsylvania with Ohio, seems to be a hot spot for Dogman and Sasquatch. And then the east, even on the eastern side of Ohio, there's also reports, and then it kind of runs just down along the southern border of Ohio into the western edge of Ohio is also a hot spot for reports.
Do you give any credence to the theory that the Dogman comes in to hunt or menace the Bigfoot and the Bigfoot leave, or do you think that's bunk?
I would kind of be speculating. I think they probably mutually avoid each other as if possible. I don't think that they're actively looking to one, knock out the other. Maybe push them out of the area as in a non-violent way, I would think. But I don't think, in my opinion, they would be, looking for a fight if they had to.
Right.
Most animals fight or flight.
Right.
One will, kind of just give way without the fight unless you really have to. So I think they might share, sort of avoid each other if they can.
Do you find when you talk to people, I'm assuming you do talk to several people that have Dogman encounters as well, I've heard a lot of people propose that it's always a negative experience. There's no such thing as a docile Dogman encounter. It's always got an evil vibe to it. Do you find that to be the truth?
There are positive ones. Most of them aren't publicly on the typical Dogman shows that we would find. The positive encounters, I tend to find those more in the Facebook or social media groups, and people will come out and say, well, since even people who started with a negative encounter for whatever reason, maybe they fired a shot at it, or
right, then
some of them have come to find that they can have positive encounters and they're not all bad. So publicly on the shows, most of them are in the scary range.
Yes.
And I think those are more common, but I think there are quite a few that aren't. And to have that kind of encounter, I'm not sure what you have to do to get that, but I think you'd have to be pretty brave.
Yeah, braver than me.
Going in by yourself and sitting there unarmed and totally submissive and seeing what happens. That's what it's from what I've read. That's kind of how people are doing that kind of thing.
This is about the most far out thing that I know of with the Dogman, and I've experienced this from people I've talked to myself. Have you ever heard of the penchant for the red flannel? that the dog man has a thing for red flannel? It sounds so crazy, but it comes up time and time and time again.
I think I've heard a few of those. And the ones that I've heard where they're wearing red flannel or a type of clothing, the descriptions of that kind don't seem to match the majority of the typical descriptions. And a few that stick out that I've heard is it was more, the ones that were wearing clothing were more of like just a dog-headed person. Like the body of a person, not a canine, with just a canine head.
It's wild.
And I've heard people refer to them as the cynocephaly types. And those reports of dog-headed people go back quite a ways in history.
To Egypt.
If you research that, Anubis. And
Yeah.
So, I mean, some people say there was a race of them in Europe, and they, interacted with human beings, and they had their own thing going on in the woods. So, so I have heard them, but just a small number.
Well, as long as we've come this far, we've got to take it all the way to the woo side of things. I know you had told me a story of hiking in the woods or being on a bike trail or whatever, and you had some interesting things happen to you, which I've had other guys tell me basically the same version, or the same kind of a story. You were telling me about you saw a person one time when you were on a bike trail.
Yeah, it's just kind of strange. My wife and I, we were broad daylight biking on a popular trail. There was a lot of people around, nice sunny day. And we were going in one direction, and I remember we went under a tunnel. And it was really chilly under the tunnel. It wasn't long. It was probably 20 yards. We went through there and, kept going on our way. And there was a lady that had come past us. I'm not one to stare at people as they come by, but I just noticed the pattern of clothes that she had on. Maybe it was red socks or red shoes or something red that kind of just drew my attention, but I didn't stare at her or anything, for a long time. And she was walking, slowly at a normal pace in the opposite direction. So we crossed, we were riding our bikes, not super fast, just normal cruising speed for a bike path. Right. And, a few minutes later, we run into the same lady again. And I'm thinking, okay, is that her twin who lagged behind? Did she?
Very logical thought process.
And the wearing the same. Some twins do that.
Right.
I mean, you never know. I mean, it could have been that.
Right.
But if it wasn't, then that woman would have had to go to the parking lot, which is quite a ways back, and then get in a vehicle or some way come all the way back around and then pass us again. But when we saw her the second time, I didn't make any acknowledgement to Becky because there was no reason why I would.
Right.
Just a normal person.
Right.
But the second time, you give her that look. We both look at each other like.
I love it. I love it. That's good stuff, man.
But I don't know.
George, social media has changed this game so much. How do you use social media to your benefit doing this research, and what's kind of the nuts and bolts of a week in the life of George Workman on social media?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, it's one of my primary tools to, meet fellow researchers and, learn and get information. That's my primary objective there, is to, find Bigfoot and Dogman type things. So for me, it's just invaluable. A typical week, I've even jumped over to a different platform other than the most popular one that I'm on, and people that I wouldn't normally be able to talk to, because they're too busy or, whatever, and some have been shadow banned or whatever the reason is. They're on a smaller platform now, and you can directly talk to people more, and they open up more. Like, for instance, one lady that has all kinds of interesting special encounters, barely would even mention it on the one platform. But then you go to the other platform and she's like, you just met her for the first time, totally opens up, tells you all of her stuff, her background. to me, it's just amazing, like that.
Yeah.
Just because the URL page changed, that you'll suddenly tell more information.
Yeah.
And even as you go between different groups, okay, I'm in your group, and you kind of, as an example, not you personally, but I might not bring up this kind of topic. So I won't exactly say what I want, but then if I skip over to the other group, I can say whatever I want.
Right.
We can fully discuss any weird things that happen.
And that is one of the things we pride ourselves on. We want to talk about everything politely on our page too. But I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like you change your personality to adjust to the group.
Exactly.
So,
And coincidentally, that's how you and I ended up meeting in the first place to begin with. Now, one thing about you is you actually go out into the real world and meet these people in real life a lot of times, and you actually end up going out and doing research with them, much like we all did last night.
yeah, that's one of my main objectives, is to meet, people that are, know a lot and are nice people, and people you could trust and learn from, and just share a good night with, camping, and sharing research. So I've done that quite a few times. This is just kind of recent for me, probably at the end of last year when I started, or I rejoined social media, because I wasn't on social media at all, but rejoined social media with the objective just to get more information, because I wasn't getting any reports coming in, so I was like, I need to take the initiative here and just generate stuff for myself. So, you go in the groups and meet people like you, and we end up meeting up and, forming a friendship and a trust and sharing information and learning. I'm kind of selective because I am, I'm very open-minded
Right.
on what the possibilities are. So sometimes it'll work out with a group or a certain person, sometimes it won't. But I mean, I think I've had good success in Western Pennsylvania. I met guys from Indiana. We kind of, meet in the middle of Ohio, and there's quite a few people I could, name, but we've had good times. So that's how I'm using social media to, generate information.
Yeah, very good. No, of course, not asking for any names or anything, but have you ever gone to do something with someone and it ends up being that you're kind of calling them out and maybe their mouth wrote a check that their research couldn't cash, kind of thing?
Man, I'm sure there has been, but I'm kind of passive. I'll just let things slide. Like I'm not looking to do that in person.
Right.
It's never come to that. I probably thought it.
No one's ever buffaloed you to get you out there and stuff, and you think, oh man, what am I doing?
Yeah, I haven't come across that yet.
That's cool. Man.
Yeah. So I've kind of vetted people ahead of time to at least know.
Well, you're the analytics guy. You can certainly do that.
Yeah.
What's the future of your map for the sightings and stuff? What's your aspirations of where you want to go with this going forward?
There's lots of green areas with no dots, no reports, there are areas that are well forested and remote. So I like to fill in those kind of areas with more reports. And if people watch this and may have a report that they want to put on the map, you could go online, go to any search engine like Google or whatever, and you can type in Pennsylvania or PA Bigfoot sightings map.
PA Bigfoot sightings map.
Yeah, and it should come up on the first page, and you can click on the map, and the instructions would be in the upper left corner. Contact me at privateman@startmail.com. That's my email address, privateman@startmail.com, and then I would, start the process to, check out your report and investigate it, and, get it to where it needs to be to go on the map. Because I'm pretty selective. I like to nail down the main things that happen, the time, the date, the general area. Well, pretty close to the general area.
Right. I know you said you like to respect people's privacy and not be publishing that kind of stuff, so that's cool too.
Yeah, and there's quite a few that I come across that are generated through a website or whatever, and they say, please do not put this anywhere public. So those ones I just totally ignore. They're not on there.
Right.
But, if they are at somebody's house, I'm not going to put the map dot in the front yard or backyard, put it down the road or in the woods or,
And so it's safe to assume that your 400 plus sightings that you have documented on your map, none of those are going to be, well, my buddy's neighbor's kid was hunting deer last year and he saw, yeah, I mean, these are going to be very specific and concise, well documented and researched sightings that are going to be on your map.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Otherwise, I would include them. Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as future goes, I want to continue on with the older ones. I've just gotten into the older ones, and there's hundreds of them.
That's a great idea.
In Tim Renner's book, so I want to correlate those and just keep going with different decades and just fill it out as much as we can. I'd also, like I said, take the map statistics and create something where we have analytics, so I can easily answer your question of what color is the most common. I'll know immediately. Well, 80% are black.
Yeah.
15% are red, and 5% are whatever. So that would be the future of the next steps to what I want to do to answer all those questions.
And I'm sure you don't have enough work to do with all this now, but wouldn't it be neat if you could get people to somehow GPS pin every time they found a tree structure and then overlay that onto the sightings, man? You'd really have something there.
Wow, that would be overwhelming. It would be because, some people were very astute to find tree structures, and, you probably have to have a different, at least the ability to turn that layer off.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't, but wouldn't it be excellent to see?
Wouldn't it be excellent? Exactly.
Here's a row of this color, and and then it leads you right to where they might be going, like water or the north side of this mountain range, or
if you figure out what these tree structures mean, please let me know immediately.
Yeah, please tell me too.
Fascinating stuff. And as far as are you admin in any Bigfoot research groups or anything like that, or?
No, I'm actually not.
Oh, okay. All right.
One group asked me to be an admin. It was an Irish group, or like an international based, and they were kind of limiting what you could say, and I was kind of getting into arguments with people. And I gotta leave. That was the only one I was an admin, and I dropped out.
Yeah.
I feel like my page, my personal page, is kind of my group. I consider that a group, even though it doesn't have the search functionality. But, and it's not, I don't just limit it to cryptid stuff. I'll put other weird things on there, people disappearing in the middle of the highway, and the latest this or that from the news. So I kind of just consider that my group. So.
I know I have heard this, not even from you. I can't remember who I heard this from, but you're kind of famous for being a guy that goes out in a ghillie suit a lot. Is that true?
No, that's
it's not
me.
true.
I don't have a ghillie suit.
I'm not kidding you. Somebody told me, they're like, George, oh yeah, dude, that guy's in the woods all the time in a ghillie suit, man.
You legend grows.
Don't bring his ghillie suit when he comes to do the show. That's great stuff.
I do know a guy that does have one and had good results, but I don't personally have one.
That's a true story, man.
I mean, it sounds like you're asking for trouble, especially, people with firearms out in the woods. Like, you better have a good special location to do that.
Any other cryptids that have caught your interest? There's so many to choose from around here. I just have to ask.
I'd say those Bigfoot or Sasquatch and Dogman are probably my two main areas. I'll read about, other ones. There's Mothman and stuff like that, but, I just kind of read them. I don't really research them. I'm just more as an entertainment, just to, you've heard there's Goatman running around in Maryland. I've heard of that one. That one's kind of local though, and there's not much to it. There is a real pretty clear picture of it. I don't know if it's real or not, if you've ever seen that.
I think I did see that.
I mean, it looks
too good to be true, which is why a lot of people think it's
kind
not.
of doing his high school senior picture pose. That's how good it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if that one's real. But
Oftentimes that seems to be the problem. A lot of people would argue if the evidence is very, very good, it's too good to be true, and people will just try to destroy it because the Bigfoot community seems to eat its own.
Yeah, we just talked about that. That was one of our topics last night. I mean, there's quite a few that are controversial and really popular and well known, even on mainstream channels.
Yeah.
You know, I think the one standing documentary is on Netflix or Amazon, and you can easily. And what's interesting about that one is that one's reaching out to the general public.
Yeah.
Not just the Bigfoot world.
Yeah.
So then you can read the reactions of, you know, what people that aren't into the topic, what they think. And to me, that's really interesting, because one of the pet things that I like to do when I watch these videos, you know, on the social media where you have likes and dislikes, just a little thing that I've developed is if it's over 50% likes, for me, that kind of from the general public, that kind of indicates that one's probably real. Like seems more likely, you know. And I've just noticed a pattern, you know, is you might get out of 100, it's 80-20, then they really think that one is authentic, you know, and it's just something to look for as you are on social media. Just look at the counts between them and you'll get a good idea of what people think, and same with the ones we were just talking about.
Very simple, very effective.
One of the things about going out in the woods and squatching, you're very likely to encounter ticks. It's a part of life, being in the woods in the north and in the south. And one of the problems with ticks is Lyme's disease, and you've been a casualty to Lyme's disease. I'm really curious about when you first started feeling the symptoms and what you've gone through in treatment.
Yeah. I think I do have Lyme's disease, and it seems that I still have it. You know, it's not something that's gone away, because since I've gotten bit a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, you know, I've gotten bit multiple times every year. So whatever I've done in the initial stages to try to combat it has come back again and again and again. So, you know, most people that I talk to just get one bite that they know of, and that's it. And they go through the typical or the standard process to, you know, get it checked. You know, you go to the doctor, you go to the urgent care, whichever one it is. They run certain tests, and you get certain medications that they give you. It's
normally an antibiotic, isn't it?
Yeah, typically like doxycycline or something like that, and that's what I did too. You know, I went, and in my case, it was very obvious that I had it. I'm pretty sure, because, you know, most people think Lyme disease, bullseye rash, right? Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah.
And that's what I had. I had it right in my navel area, and it just grew. And I knew, like, okay, I started having flu-like symptoms, like kind of a fever and a headache, but it wasn't the flu. Like, it didn't feel like anything I ever had before. And then that combined with the bullseye.
How big did the bullseye get? Like fist size, or?
It grows. Yeah, for me, it grew. So it started small, and it was kind of a burning, itching, and it just grew all the way up my chest, you know, as big as it could get. But I went pretty quick, you know. It's in that case, I don't think that I was bitten a year ago or 2 years ago, and then went for treatment. I'm, you know, pretty sure that I had gotten bit, you know, right then, because I was new to that area, you know, in a rural area where I live. So I went and got treatment right away. It didn't linger, and it seemed to help.
Did the treatment, the symptoms went away pretty quick with the treatment?
Yeah, you know, within a couple of weeks, I was feeling pretty good. So yeah, that was my first run through.
Right.
And that's fine. I mean, as I go on and went through different treatment options and talked to different doctors, you know, some who aren't the standard medical process that we would go through had different opinions of whether I should have done that initially, because, you know, antibiotics interfere with your normal gut flora. You know, so you take antibiotics and it might kill all the good stuff that you might be requiring in order to stay healthy. So, you know, what most people that ask me, I what should I do when I get bit? For the first one, I would recommend just kind of going through the standard process. But there are other alternatives if you want to start off differently right away. You could still have success.
Do you mind sharing some of those alternatives that you've come across and used?
Yeah, sure. So the first round, went through the standard process, and then the second round, I went through the process again.
How long after the first was the second?
I'd say the next year, because my symptoms were pretty much gone. It was either the next year or later in the season, like towards winter. So maybe the first one was early in April, and then the next one was either the end of the year or maybe the next year. I kind of don't remember.
Was it triggered by another bite?
I'm not sure. It might have been in that case the second time. I'm not sure, but I remember thinking, okay, well, my symptoms are coming back again. Why is this happening? Like my neck's hurting again. I'm getting headaches again. For me, those are my common. The neck pain in the back of my neck. I know that it's coming on at that point. That's my most common. So I started experiencing symptoms again, and I went and got the antibiotics again, and at this time it didn't work. It didn't help. So that's when I started to look elsewhere for alternative treatments. So I went to a holistic doctor in Greensburg, herbalist, and they gave me some things, and that helped.
What were those things?
She had a certain way of determining which ones were right for me. She had different ones, and they had different tests.
An individualized treatment plan, then, basically, is what she comes up with.
Yeah, like how I reacted to different ones. She would test it. And that was so many years ago, I kind of don't remember what those ones were. There's so many different things that you take even now. I can't pinpoint all of them, but I remember that one. I went through that, and it helped. But then I continue to get bit more times each year, because I'm out Bigfooting, I'm out in the woods, even in my yard. Actually, most of the time that I've been bit is from my animals, just in my yard. Cat, I go out, cat comes in, cat has ticks, and I can kind of gauge the tick season through how many ticks my animals get. You know how it is with goats and other animals.
You can tell by the population on them and how hard you have to work trying to keep them tick free.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I gauge the weather of tick season. How many there are, but then I kind of ended up where I settled, where it started to get really bad in probably the fourth year. So in the fourth year, I had this pain in my chest that felt like someone hit me with a really sharp object. Not like a heart attack, but just a pain, like right in the cartilage area in between my pecs here. And then it was really intense, and then it turned into another bullseye rash and just spread. Like it felt like burning poison ivy for weeks, and just got bigger. The pain got more intense and bigger, and you could see it spreading on my chest. And then it went up into my shoulder, and it was into my arm and my hand, and all these weird places in my joints, and then it just traveled. So I knew, like, okay, now I really have to.
It had to be awful disconcerting when it's affecting like your chest and especially with maybe not knowing exactly what it is and
yeah, it's difficult. It's like, okay, what's happening now? Can I get a handle on this? Like, it seemed to be getting out of control. So then I gotta try a different doctor, different approach. So I did. I found a doctor in Pittsburgh. It's not that she's a homeopathic doctor, and services. She had an article on her website that explained things from a homeopathic point of view and different remedies and treatments that are available. And she would use your existing tests from your other doctors, the blood tests and different things, and
use that as like a baseline for.
Yeah, and it was very thorough. Okay, give me your life history. Give me what you're eating right now, and where are you getting headaches in the front, in the back? A very thorough examination, and she was treating people all over the world. Because she was doing it online and by phone as well. So then, she gave me an approach what to eat, what not to eat.
So you were working on diet and
Yeah,
treatment.
yeah, and it plays a big factor. In my experience, certain things I might eat might trigger certain symptoms. Like, if I eat a big bowl of pasta one night and bread, then the next day, my fingers don't bend. Just strange, and that's the kind of things, if you have this for a long time, that you should really pay attention to. What foods that I eat that might trigger or make me feel a certain way the next day.
How about beer?
Beer, I was just going there. Good thinking. I found that I like to drink beer. I don't drink as much as I used to, but I still like to drink craft good beers and, different things. And, there's good wheat beers and Hefeweizens and things like that. And those ones were making me feel extra bad.
Right.
Pains.
The ones that you like.
Yeah, the ones that I really like, real bad pains in my neck, pains, headaches. And that would happen like right away.
While you're...
Yeah, well, on the second or third one, I start feeling it, so I'm like, okay, so then I start getting, gluten-free beer, like the fruitier versions.
Yeah.
Those ones, and I seem to be okay with those. So, when I do have them,
good beer.
I can't remember what they're called. There's one, I think, Red House or red wine, that's it's made with sorghum wheat instead of the hops.
And that's what makes it gluten free then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that one I was okay with that. So actually, I remember you had mentioned some beers, and I had to tell you I can't have certain ones.
I was like, man, that's a horrible.
Yeah. So this stuff that it gets all through you. You can literally feel it crawling all around, and it just kind of makes you way more conscious of just little feelings and itches. Like, I'm always looking for ticks now, but it's just I can't help it.
Right. It's just a part of Squatch life.
Yeah. So my advice to people that are going out in the woods, to me, I mean, it's almost like an eventuality. I could think of 10 people in the past year or two that I know, people I work with, you guys, squatchers that all have it. And I'm telling them the same things that I'm telling you now, this is what I would recommend. But people are just getting it left and right. And
you said that there's a very active social media community for Lyme's disease too, for people doing research and reaching out to each other.
Yeah, there is, and I've reach out just to help people, just to give them advice like, hey, this worked for me. I'm not a doctor or anything, but there's quite a few groups on social media where you can share experiences with other people and read what they did and what worked for them or what didn't work. Or some people lose their life savings trying to treat this.
So the Lyme's disease kind of forced you to make a lot of decisions about what you eat and make you really look at what you're eating and taking into your body. And then you've also, I believe, made some life changes similar. You've moved out into the country over the last few years. Is that all related? Is it just kind of seemed that everything's coming together leading to that?
Yeah, I'd say it is kind of related. If I lived where I lived before I had Lyme's disease, then I probably wouldn't have Lyme's disease. I think because of where I live now in the country, and there's so many ticks around, that's probably, why I got it in the first place. So,
A price you've paid for...
Yeah, kind of. But I really like where I live now and the privacy that we have and, the close relationship to the hobbies and stuff that we like to do, so...
And that includes raising chickens and bees and...
Yeah, I got into... we have 10, 12 chickens, right now. So I've learned, how to raise livestock. Even bees are considered livestock. So it's something new for me to learn. It's, growing.
How many hives are you taking care of at home?
I'd say right now we have 4 hives going. It's going to vary from year to year. I started out with 2 because that's if you're going to start. They kind of want to have a backup, like we like to do with a lot of things, when we go out, have a backup, because, if something happens to one, you can always make adjustments, with the other ones. And then as you, get into it more, you kind of expand. And, if you're successful in, getting honey production, then you can, get more out of it. And you really learn a lot about just how things work when you study the bees and become a beekeeper. You're basically their manager. So you're, managing their space. That's one of the main things that you're doing is, whether it's too much space or too little space. If it's too much space, they might leave, and they might form a swarm, and half of them leave, and you lose half your production. So you have to kind of keep a close eye on things and manage how much room they have in there. So there's really a lot to it.
Have you suffered any of the catastrophic losses that other people have and lost whole hives?
Yeah, I've lost them here and there. I've lost them. Sometimes I've lost them for one reason or another. I don't always know, why. Sometimes I'll ask my mentor type people that are in beekeeper clubs, and they have their theories on why it might be. But I've seen weird things happen, where they just aren't there anymore, and they're kind of just gone. And it's just you kind of just roll with the punches and see what works. Try different things. Making them warmer in the winter, or trying this medicine or whatnot to treat for different pests and mites that get into the hives. I've had ones that are a lot of it. I mean, the whole hive depends on a lot on the queen. So if you have a bad queen, there's only one queen in the beehive. A lot of people don't know that. So if she's not producing and laying the eggs, then you're done.
So if you get a hiccup in her production,
yeah, you either they help them make a new one, or you have to replace her. You could buy a new queen too.
Is there something you can do that stimulates them to create a new queen?
They're right on that. You don't need to do that.
Oh, okay.
If they sense that she's not producing, you will see signs in the hive that something's wrong. They'll make certain cells that look a certain way, and even they'll try to lay. All the bees for the most part in the hive are female. There's a few drones around, the males that just kind of hang out and have a good time and eat. They don't really do much. There's not that many of them, but they kind of know what's happening, and you'll see the signs of that, and that's an indication there's a problem with your queen. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to do it. So.
And you're producing honey steadily?
The first year I kind of got lucky. I had beginner's luck. I had over 100 pounds of honey, which isn't that much, but for when you first start, depending on what time you start in the year, that's a lot. That might be, if you see a bee box, kind of looks like a big shoe box.
Yeah.
That's maybe one of those. So that box might weigh 80 pounds full of honey.
Nice.
And a lot of good thing, within the hive itself, we're talking about limes and things like that. There's quite a few things in there that are helpful for limes. Like the honey itself helps with your allergies because it's raw and pure as it's going to be. And then you have the wax, and you have the pollen, and there's also propolis, which is the glue that they use to seal everything down. And that in itself is something that's really good, topic to look into for your health, for different benefits.
I have with the pollen. I've used the pollen especially for allergies. It's supposed to be very effective. We added it to smoothies and yogurts, like wheat germ type thing.
Yeah, and my grandfather, he was into a lot of holistic, natural stuff. As a kid, so I kind of grew up eating bee pollen as well, and so I kind of liked it. As I ate it again as an adult. But yeah, there's a lot of benefits to what you can get out of the bees. I mean, it's one of the only foods that insects actually make, and we can eat it.
Yeah.
There might be one other kind of smaller one in Australia or something, but the honeybee is the one that...
It's the only food stuff that we get from insects.
Yeah, and it's amazing. They find it in ancient Egypt, and it's still good. Like, it just crystallizes. You might could unseal it, but you could probably still eat it. Yeah,
I've read that. It could be a couple thousand years old and still good.
Yeah, it's like magic. Magic elixir.
And then you also raise chickens too, so you're getting your eggs daily. And
yeah, we're getting a lot of eggs. Sometimes we have too many. So I try to sell them sometimes, or just give them away. If we have too many, you kind of get a feeling for the threshold of how many eggs you get versus how many we eat. Or we give them to the dogs. The dogs love fresh eggs.
Oh yeah.
They're sneaking in there trying to get eggs. But yeah, I mean, you learn a lot about just, I didn't hardly know anything about chickens, and most people don't.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that roosters are laying eggs, and that's totally not
Or
true.
that they can't lay without a rooster.
Right. They're just popping them out left and right. So you learn management of animals, and we like to let them free range as much as possible. Because they pick up, they're not just eating the one food source. Kind of get some variety in their
Eat some
diet.
ticks too.
Yeah, they eat ticks, so that's a good thing. Possums, I let them go, they eat ticks as well. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the chickens. The roosters, they're waking me up. I know what time it is, at 4:58, we hear roosters, and we have 3 of them. So at this point, so I'm sure Tom, knows a lot about the roosters. But I like the chickens, and we've had a good success, I'd say. As far as we haven't lost too many to predators. Like we have a good system with, fencing in.
You just get them in every night. Make sure that.
Yeah, they go in on their own. I go up and close their gate. There's a net over the top. We actually had a chicken hawk attack that my wife thwarted last week. I kind of posted that on social media, and I had a lot of response. She had heard a big thud, and the chickens, they know when the hawks are around, and they start making a lot of noise. And she went outside, and there was one on one of our chickens, and
wow,
she scared it off and saved the chicken.
That's kind of that noise where they go. Roar. Is that the noise that they were making? Like
weird. They make all those weird noises.
Yeah, especially when something flies, they like to announce it.
Yeah, they're definitely on alert. I'm around these chickens so much, I feel like I'm speaking chicken half the time. Just in passing. Yeah. So yeah, I like them.
Or will you be adding different? Is there another project in the works for you for the rural living? The next step?
I think at this point we're kind of on hold. We have a lot of animals. We had another cat show up. He decided to move in, so he's outside. We have a bunch of cats and dogs and the chickens and the bees. So at this point, I like to get goats, but I've been told, that's probably not going to happen.
It's an investment of time and effort, that's for sure.
And you know what, too? I had a lot of, sometimes I get lazy, too. I had a big garden going, and,
that's a lot of work.
And then add lime into that, and I can't always get to it. Sometimes I'm just out of commission. My knee's blown up, or so I can't always take the best care of them that they would probably need for me to be able to, give them the best life.
Yeah.
But I do like those little pygmy goats. I wish I had a few of those. So.
Well, thank you very much, George. It was great getting together with you last night, having an expedition overnight, and awesome interview. Thank you for the information, and thanks for being a part of Cryptovania.
Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate the invitation. It's something I wasn't too sure about at the beginning, but I'm glad, we did it, and I got to meet you guys and go out in the field and have a fun night. And, I want to thank everybody in the crew, Cryptovania crew, for helping me through this. It's not something you do every day, but it's a great time, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay.
This is Cryptovania. Stay cryptid, my friends.